Hello everyone and welcome back to this new video. Today we are not speaking about nature, but we are speaking about Marie Curie writing proposal stories. In particular, we will have 4 great researchers that share with us their personal experience. So I think it's rather unique and is something that you definitely will not find in guidelines. So we will have Hans, Thea, Carmen and Helga. Enjoy the video.
Yeah, thanks for this interview. So basically, since almost a year now, I'm in Vienna at the University of Vienna, and I'm an assistant professor here and the head of the neuromechanics research group.
When did you apply for the Marie Curie?
Basically, I finished my PhD, which I did in Australia in November 2016. And then I got a postdoc position at KU Leuven in Belgium. And I think I was already working there for several months. And then I applied actually for the Marie Curie Fellowship.
How did it work? It was you suggesting to apply for the Marie Curie? Your supervisor proposed you to apply?
So it was basically a combination of my supervisor, the PI from KU Leuven I was working with. She suggested to apply for a scholarship as well, for a fellowship. And so we were chatting about it, and we had she had a few topics in mind, and I actually chose the topic I was really interested in. And then we started to do this whole process. It was my first time writing a grant like that.
Yes.
But at KU Leuven, they also offered workshops. So I went to these workshops where I actually got an idea about how this whole process works. Basically, at the beginning, there was just an introduction lecture where they tell you some basic stuff about it. But then there was also like a more comprehensive workshop, which I think was for half a day or a day, where they also had people speaking who received a grant and also people speaking who actually reviewed the grants, and which was actually quite nice to hear. It was nice and not nice, because on one hand, it was interesting to hear how they review all these grants, but it was also, how should I say, these people were telling you, okay, you write for this grant for several months, and they have like 10-20 minutes to read each grant because they're reading many grants. So they don't have much time. And so it's really important to focus on the aspects they want to see during this whole writing process.
During this discussion, they were highlighting, I guess, the most critical point for the reviewers.
Exactly, it was like that. So basically, this helped me a lot to get a basic idea about how this whole grant should look like. But then I was also lucky because I actually approached a colleague, and he received like a Marie Curie Fellowship a few years before. So I actually approached him and asked him bluntly for his proposal, and he was very kind and friendly and sent me this proposal. This was really nice because then I had like a successful proposal, which helped me to see how this should be structured. On the other hand, it was also a little bit discouraging because compared to myself, he had like, I think 3 or 4 times the amount of publication. And I thought, oh my God, if my CV is never as good as his was at this stage, but at the end, it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I think at the end, that kind of comparison is common for a lot of people. But I also, from my own experience, I think it's really crucial to not to just listen to other experience, but to know someone in particular and then know exactly that kind of experience, go through the other proposals. Then I had also another question in mind related with the structure for the Marie Curie, because I know there is one of the, probably the main part, the core is the excellence part, where you need to explain what do you want to investigate, the science behind your proposal. But then there are other 2 parts that are more related with yourself, with the background for your host institution, how you can grow. In your experience, you think one part is more important than the other one or not?
I think, but it's like just a personal opinion. I think both parts are very, very important. And what I saw on some colleagues who also applied for, many people also only focus on the science, but it's not only the science in this proposal. It's also basically, I think your CV needs to be good enough and doesn't considering the early stage of your career. So I think if you have no publications or only 1 or 2 publications, it depends on the area of research you are, but in my area of research, I think this wouldn't make sense. So it's important that the CV is good enough. Then the science, of course, is good enough, but then also to show actually what you're going to learn during this process. So I think all this combined is very important. And what actually also helped me, because there's also a lot of focus on basically how you gonna use the information, how you're gonna use the research, and how you disseminate the results. And for that, actually, KU Leuven had like an office, and they were very experienced with writing these grants. And at the end, when I was already in a final stage, I could also send my proposal to them, and they gave me a little bit of feedback on these aspects as well, where they had already quite a lot of experience with. So this was for sure also very helpful in my case. Yeah. And then just want to mention, for me, it was the first time writing a grant, basically a real grant by myself. And it took some time. So after basically I had the idea and I went to the workshops and then I knew basically what to do, it still took me, I think, almost 2 months to write the grant. So I don't know, maybe some people are faster. And what I think is also very important, which I also do now when writing other grants at the current state, is I try to write the grant in a very easy, understandable way. So my aim is always, it's almost like if my grandmother tries to read it, she should at least get the idea about the grant. So I think this, from my personal experience, I think it's also very important to try really clear, to have a nice structure, to make it basically easy for the reviewer to go through the document, to also maybe add some figures, because it's not very, how should I say, exciting or like encouraging if a reviewer gets a grant proposal and it's just like 10 pages of one line after another.
Now, if we move a bit on in time, so now you said you are in Vienna and you are an assistant professor, right, in Vienna?
Yes.
Now, and then I imagine that your Marie Curie helped you a lot to get that position.
So I really believe it helped me a lot. So basically, this was the first grant I got. Then during my Marie Curie Fellowship at KU Leuven, I also got another small grant, like a project grant for 40Ks, which I think already helped me because I got the Marie Curie before. And then during the end of my fellowship, I actually applied the first time in my life for a tenure track position. So I didn't really expect to get invited to the interview, but at the end I got invited to the interview, and surprisingly, I even got the position. And I think the Marie Curie Fellowship was a big part of the success of my application. And also now within my research line, basically one PhD student still focus on the topic which was part of my Marie Curie Fellowship. So that's why I also think it's very important that you choose a topic which you're really passionate about and which you really like and which you want to do, because it might stay with you for a longer period, not only for your Marie Curie Fellowship.
Thanks a lot, Hans. And if you move it a bit towards your right, yeah, we can see yourself climbing. Because I know you are really passionate for that one, and yeah, it was a nice background for you. Then it's like transparent for the background.
Oh yeah, true.
It's like now you are drinking yourself. There was like your food.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So yeah, I applied twice for Marie Curie. Both times I wasn't successful, but I did receive pretty high scores, so that was good. I mean, it's a good feeling when you know that your science is good enough for high scores. So the first time I applied, I've never actually heard of Marie Curie. I was actually in Italy at a time, and the host supervisor, I was collaborating with him during my PhD, and he asked me, oh, would you be interested in doing a postdoc with me? There are these Marie Curie fellowships, and I was like, I don't know what that is, because I was coming from Canada. So yeah, so he suggested I apply, and I thought it was like the Canadian postdoctoral fellowships. The Canadian postdoctoral fellowships are very short. Like for the health institutes, it's just a single page of proposal, and then one page of training, and then some references. And I was like, oh, okay, I can put together like 4 pages. It's no big deal. But anyway, then I got examples of Marie Curie fellowships, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is like a 10-page thing. And I've never written a grant before, so I had no idea what I was doing.
So it was your first grant, your very, very first grant.
Yes, first time. Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing because it was my first instance of writing a grant, and I didn't get that training in my PhD. I don't think many people do get that training. I've seen people write grants before, and I've had examples of grants, but I think reading examples is one thing, and writing your own grant is another thing. So I had
agree.
a project. Yeah, I had a project in mind that I wanted to do. And my host supervisor was very interested in this project because we've been collaborating for a while, and that was like the next step we wanted to do. We wanted to implement whatever I was doing in my PhD to the breast cancer survivor population. So he was very interested in this idea, even though it was basically it was within his area of expertise, but he's never worked with breast cancer patients. So in terms of like neuromuscular control and neuromuscular damage, it was within his area of expertise, but it was a whole new population for him, working with women who had breast cancer.
Yeah,
So
normally that's a good thing for the Marie Curie, right? When you can also bring expertise to the host institution, and they are also going to give you something, no? So we can have this triangle of what you give, what you are given, what you receive from the host institution. It's also something that the Marie Curie fellowships are meant for. They want to have this bi-directional expertise transfer. You don't need to put all the information inside. You just need to show that you have thought about it. You considered it, or whether you forgot, because that is what makes this excellence, right? That is what makes it's not that you didn't think about it if you didn't put it on the grant, but you cannot prove it, right? So this is in the details where it comes, and it's tough. It's tough.
I did learn a lot about grant writing when I came into the postdoctoral fellowship here at the University of Michigan. That was really the beauty of it, is that because of COVID, we were very limited in what I could do as a postdoc. So it was like, okay, let's focus you on learning something new that you haven't had the experience with. So I actually end up writing like 3 grants during my postdoctoral fellowship. Each one was different length, right? But it was good because the supervisor I'm working with right now, Dr. David Lips, he was very good at like writing. He's very good at writing these grants and selling his science. And I really learned a lot by working with him and going back and forth as to how to make it simple so that everyone would understand it, how to sell your science. And then he also likes to include some pilot data in his grants, right, to show what he's talking about. And he always makes these beautiful images. And then also, if you are in the lab and actually you do some piloting, you could be like, oh, this works or this doesn't work, right? And then you can switch it up and have a better idea of how this is going to look like. So then you can write up your experimental protocol, thinking about certain limitations you haven't thought about, or certain new ways of looking at it.
So now what I want to do,
I have my coffee.
Indeed. Oh,
it's not small, but it is coffee. For a coffee break.
It's for a coffee break, yeah. Do you think that this grant is very special in the way of writing compared to the other grants that you have written in the States?
It's different. It's different. So here in the States, like I never had an experience writing an RO, like one of those NIH grants for postdocs, because I am an international postdoc, so I don't I'm not eligible for these kind of scholarships, except for the big one where you apply and then you can, I think if you get it, you can become an assistant professor. But I wasn't planning to stay in the US, so I didn't apply for that one. But it's different because it has, Marie Curie has specific things that I've never heard of, like you know, for example, a big thing of Marie Curie is like going, especially for the standard fellowship, is going somewhere else during your fellowship. So it's like this whole translation between your partner institution, host institution, and partner institution, that I was like, I don't understand this part of what I need to write here, because I've never seen that in these grants here in US. I actually never had to write something like that. Here it's fairly straightforward. You propose your idea, you write your statistical analysis, and then you write your training, mostly like briefly kind of thing. But I think Marie Curie is really focused on the training and what you're gonna get out of that training. So that section is, yeah, I would say very different from like Canadian or the US granting system. Like in Canada, they look at the training, but it's like a single page, or a single or 2 pages that you have to write that in. So it doesn't go into that much detail.
And probably it's not a training in the direction researcher host institution, right? Which is also something specific from the Marie Curie. In the Marie Curie, you also have to say how you are going to transfer your knowledge to the host institution, and that's something.
Oh yeah, and then risk of your project. So like you have to put in
the mitigation plan. That was also, I struggled with that one too.
You know, it's like, how can you fit it in the table? You want to be real, right? But you also you want to you know, convey the limitations, obviously, that could arise during your project. So that the first time I struggled with, the second time I was fully aware, because I had the experience of actually planning for a study during my PhD and thinking about what are certain limitations that are going to come up in this project. So I really, like, even during, like, between my first time applying and the second time applying, I actually took that table and I added more stuff to it. So yeah.
My biggest struggle with the Marie Curie to find the right balance between sections, how much information to put in one section in the other. The course that I did from the National Contact Point, there was a reviewer who explained us all the review process, and they have a lot of grants to review. So they have this evaluators manual, I think it's called, where they where you can see there a checklist whether things have been considered or not. And I think that they do follow this manual very much, so that they can be consistent across grants or across applications. And that means also that we do have to give them that information, right? If that information is not there, it's just, or it's in another section, it could be that they didn't find it directly, and then they give you a bad score. So so it should be considered very, very carefully where you put the information and how much information you put, so that is easily findable. Right? There is a list of reviewers for the Marie Curie, and for my grant, I did look into the reviewers list, and I checked whether the keywords of the reviewers, if they matched with my keywords. And if I found something on the reviewers list that, or someone who could be exactly an expert on my topic, because then you have a higher chance your application is matched with that reviewer, and they will look at your grant in a different way. But then I saw that no one was really an expert on my topic, and then I thought, this I have to write in a more generic way. I mean, not too generic, right? But to find also the right balance, to give enough scientific information, and that is broad enough to make it also interesting for other reviewers who are not exactly in the field.
I didn't even know that. So that's something new to me. I didn't know you could check.
Normally you can find them if you log in into the portal of the funders, on the funding and tenders, and there is a lot of information, and you just have to on opening tabs until you get this Excel file. The seal of excellence helps in some countries that they do have internal funding for those people who got the seal of excellence, and then the internal funding doesn't go through another review process. So it's for to those who did apply for a Marie Curie and who got who didn't get it but got a seal of excellence, they can apply for internal funding. And some countries do have this additional funding for to support international people coming to the country. Yeah, we hope you liked it and you learned something, or maybe you got some tips. And feel free to contact us. I first wanted to congratulate you for your Marie Curie that you got this year. It is a great achievement, and I'm sure that you are really proud of it. So here we wanted to talk about your experience, well, from writing the Marie Curie, from preparing all the paperwork, and what have been your first steps in the Marie Curie, because I heard you started in last month, right? So maybe you can tell me a little bit about how you prepared the grant, or how you contacted the host institution and your current supervisor, or everything you want.
Thank you, Cristina. It is a pleasure to having coffee with you, this virtual coffee. So I explain a bit my background because I think it's easier to understand everything. So I am a physical therapist with a PhD in neuroscience, but after my PhD, I moved to the pharmaceutical industry. And afterwards, I decided that I wanted to come back again to academia. So I have this great idea that is my project, and I contact someone in LinkedIn that I saw that he's a medical doctor in Sweden, and I explain my idea, and I share my idea and the vision of the project and everything. And he told me that he actually knew someone that maybe could be interested in. So I contact with him. He liked it, and he supported me with a part-time contract at the university.
That's very unique, no? That you contacted him on LinkedIn, and then he contacted you further with someone else who could be more specialized in your project. Yeah. And how long did it take you to prepare your application, Carmen? Did you start very early with contacting your supervisor or the host institution? And
yeah, I had this idea in February, and then I contacted the first person in March, and then I had this part-time contract in May. So from May to September, I was writing full-time, even if the contract was part-time. But of course, writing Marie Curie is something that you have to focus in, and protocol and everything has to be very detailed and very, how do you say, consistent.
yeah.
So you have to study a lot about the problem or the question, the research question, and then design a very, very good protocol that makes sense and that you can do in 2 years. You have to know what are you going to do for the next 24 months.
So if I understand correctly, Carmen, you were they offered you this contract 20% to focus on writing the Marie Curie, right? Or were you hired to do something else?
No, just focus to the Marie Curie, and also because I think it's important, at least in my case, that I was coming from industry, to show to the European Commission that the university was committed with me, that they really like the idea and they really support me. And this contract was showing that we believe in this project from the university.
And can you tell me where the things that help you the most to prepare your application?
This was actually my husband, because he wrote twice a Marie Curie, and he didn't get it. This is,
Okay, so he learned a lot also from the
paradoxical
process.
thing. This is a paradoxical thing, because he didn't get it, but he did twice all these workshops at the university. So he really, when he read my proposal, he highlight like, this is not right because this and that. It was like having my own workshop at home.
Yeah.
It is super important to do these workshops, because without them, I think you cannot transmit what the European Commission wants. You have to know how to do it in their way. It's not better or worse way. It's just their way. So you have to do with their rules. So
was this your first grant or your first writing experience, Carmen?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah, my second grant experience, it was after submitting the Marie Curie, but they give me the feedback before the Marie Curie, and it was also a positive answer.
Nice, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And but yeah, it is my first experience, and I can say that it was very hard.
It was very hard, yeah.
Yeah, because I have never been sure that if it was good enough, or if I don't know. I felt very insecure, I have to say.
How do you think that the Marie Curie will have an impact on your career?
In my case, it is super important, because I came, I restart everything, and now I restart with something really important and really prestigious. So now I come back and hi, I'm here with a Marie Curie. I think change everything in my career. So I'm super happy. And I hope it's going to help, because of course you can have a Marie Curie, but then if you don't publish.
Okay, Carmen, thank you very much for your time and for all the helpful responses. I hope that the audience also find them helpful for them.
And I work like with the same group that I will do the now a following project. And what we now cut.
Don't worry. That one,
Oh no, that's not going well. Okay, I start again. I now work in the Amsterdam UMC at the Department of Rehabilitation, and we are working for dyskinetic cerebral palsy to try to assess movement disorders with sensors. In the end, we want to measure the children with the sensors at home, and like for a longer period of time. And
I was wondering, so how did you set up the project with the group in Belgium related with Marie Curie? Because I understood that, so the project is linked with what you did in the Netherlands.
Yeah, it was a project within the Amsterdam UMC with this group of children, where they already cooperated in the European Dyskinetic Network. So there was already for this group a European network, and so that's how I met the group in Belgium. So how I met Illegast Montpellier, and then we had like ideas, and we looked how could we how can we get funding for that, and how can I get like personal funding, and how can we maybe get project funding. And like the project I'm working on now, that's like project funding for innovative medical devices. And like kind of parallel to that, I asked for like personal funding. And I started with the applications, and I think maybe that's for more people relevant. In the Netherlands, there is funding for young scientists, for young postdocs to go abroad. the Rubicon, it's called. And I first tried that one, so to get Dutch funding to go abroad. And then we already established the contact with LHS, and we wrote the project, but it wasn't funded.
You get the foundation for the main project, for the Marie Curie, with this previous project.
Yeah. Like at least the project wise, I think that the project wise and the cooperation part and where to go and with whom to cooperate, I got from this initial application. And with the Marie Curie, I think they explained it a little bit as a triangle of you as a person, what can you bring to the project and the education. And I think that like my person and the education part, that I strengthens much more within the Marie Curie. And I also think that it's not only about the project, it's also about your own development. Yeah. And if you have good ideas how you can develop yourself within the field, then you have a good story about that, which is linked to the host institute and the project, then I think you kind of get chances. Although I didn't got it, huh?
At that one we will arrive at that point. But I think it's really important to have a kind of story with the host institution or with the supervisor. It was not like a brief I don't know, acquaintance, you met once and you create a project. I think that one also for me makes sense to have a kind of story like that. And then you can really create and develop the project.
Yeah, and even with the whole group, so where you were part of, and with the, like, it was longer than, I mean, I know the group of Leuven, of Bruges, longer than I know LHS. So I think also, like, what are the connections between, for example, your supervisors to something. So what, I mean, I really think you need a supervisor within writing the proposal. I mean, they always say, okay, everyone is welcome if you come with money, but you in the end only come with money if also the other side already helps you with the proposal.
Yes.
Of support you with writing, of support you with information. But the KU Leuven was very supportive also in giving information, having a writing workshop. Yeah, I've done two things. First, ask like the national contact point in the Netherlands, because you could also follow like the home university workshops. So there were also like workshops at the VU, at like my home university, a kind of general workshop for the Belgium. And then you had, I followed that, and then they had like this specific workshops from the university. And for the KU Leuven, they also did a reading. So you sent your proposal and they did like for your discipline. So no really someone completely related to your field, but I found it, I really learned a lot from the process, because they, you know, they give like feedback. Okay, but you know, you have a committee which is very widespread within your discipline. This is jargon. They will not understand that. So rewrite that part for a general public. So in that sense, I mean, they can't give you feedback on your domain knowledge of your project, but more how are things written, how is your survey written.
And how long was the whole process for the Marie Curie?
I think with the workshops I started in April, May or something. It was more time than I expected, but you have to fill so much content, and it's also to bring it to the right parts where it should fit, and also make this chant diagram. And I think I had blocked like 2 weeks for real writing, but I wasn't finished then. Although I already had already had like the project, let's say it like that. And for my supervisor, I also get a very good tip. He said, in other words, but he said, always read the guidelines of the call. And that I found for the Marie Curie because there is so many information. So before you get started, to have like all this information collected and read, Now, in the end, I started before I have read everything, because they also said, I don't know, because also your project, that it shouldn't be too much a follow-up of your PhD.
Yes, yes.
So it should be really something new, also with new people, also with new.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of combination for what I understood is so you obviously you can it doesn't make sense to start something completely from scratch.
Yeah.
But so it makes sense to do something that you have already partially a background, but then you need also to prove what you want to include as a new thing in your background. So
Yeah.
like because you provide some knowledge to the host institution, and at the same time the host institution will give you back some knowledge in another field. So when you get this combination, I think is really the ideal scenario. And I guess it was yeah, the same for you as well, because you had this experience, but then with the group in Brugge, you could get other experience for the video analysis, if I understand well. Maybe yeah. Then
the clinical experience and with
Yes.
the and also with machine learning, they have a good network for the machine learning part. So yeah, that's what you said. I think that it adds something to the knowledge that you bring something, the host institute adds something, and yeah, I think the most ideal is that it's then also a kind of European cooperation.
Yes. So now Helga, I go to the sad part, let's say, and then we make a spoiler. There will be also a nice part, but so the sad part is that at the end you didn't get the Marie Curie.
Yeah, I didn't get the Marie Curie. That's the sad story. Yeah?
That one is the sad story, but it was. I remember when you told me the score, it was really, really high, the score, because last year was also very competitive. And so I was wondering, did you find like useful feedback?
It was for sure good feedback, which I could use for resubmitting it. It was a score from 94, and it was just in our field that it was the cutoff was just above. So I think, but what you could also say from that in our field there are a lot of good applications. So
did feedback more related with the science content, or more related with the, I don't know, all the other part of the application?
Yeah, I think most of it was more a little bit also feasibility. I think that was the practicability, feasibility, which I didn't, which I maybe should have put more concrete how I solved the problem of also this risk management.
Yeah.
If something, I also had a project which was very much like one part was built up on the other part. So I think it was also kind of criticism that, okay, if one part fails, then the whole project falls together. For, you know, to be honest, I always thought that like my CV might be too not good enough. Yeah, I don't know how to say, because, you know, publications and that I had like 5 publications for my PhD, so it's really not so many. And I always said, okay, that will be, you know, with that they can easily, but that I liked from Marie Curie, they really look at the whole story. So if you have the story, okay, 5 publication, but these are key publication, of there is much content in, or whatever of I had, that I also have already done assessment development within my PhD project, and I will do that again. So, but I think I could have scored higher, let's say it like that, if I had like the practical part better worked out.
And then Helga, we go to the nice part.
The interesting part, yeah.
The nice story after the sad story, because after a while you realize that you receive kind of they call like seal of excellence, so you could reapply with your proposal to national funding in Belgium.
Yeah, so they already said, okay, go with the same proposal, also try a national grant of the FWO, so like postdoc mandate, have like higher chances. So and you can then get like the cross that it goes automatically also to national funding. I think that's in the Marie Curie. If you agree that they will send the scores also to the national agencies.
Okay, I didn't know.
I think you agree somewhere on that. And they already, and so I had already done an application for FVO postdoc mandat, but that round wasn't finished yet. And then I hear that my Marie Curie is score is high, but I will not get it, or that I'm on the reserve list. So I am on the reserve list for the Marie Curie, and yeah, for me, I mean, I saw that it was a high score, but I also didn't know the cutoff scores. I didn't know how close it was to get funded. But my supervisor was very, he informed at the KU Leuven, so what can be done and how can we, you see, it's a good proposal. What are the possibilities to still get funded? And there were several possibilities, but because it could be that you get automatically something from FVO. And then I think a few days later, they already get the message, okay, she will be invited for this call. And this is a kind of FVO call, FVO Marie Curie Seal of Excellence. And like the 8 candidates, which have the 8 highest candidates within Flandern on the reserve list, they get invited. You still did do an official application for this call, but they don't review it anymore. So they take over the scores from the European Union.
Okay. Wow.
So in the end, yeah, you just get it. But I wasn't very sure about that, but that's how it works. So they invite the 8, and if someone of the 8 candidates said, I don't want it, then the next one comes up. Let's say
but it totally makes sense, because I suppose there is also a long processing time, the review.
But like anyway, if someone has a score of 80 or don't get the Seal of Excellence, you still have also good chances for a national grant.
All right. Thanks a lot, Helga.
This concludes our Marie Curie Fellowship episodes. Thank you so much for sticking around with us and for watching all 45 minutes. There are 7 take-home messages. Message number 1. Connect with the host and the host institution early on in your application. This may be through a collaborative project. This will show the EU Commission the commitment of the host institution to you as an applicant. Number 2, attend the workshops. Without these workshops, it's very challenging to know exactly what the EU Commission is looking for in the Marie Curie grant. If you're unable to attend one of these workshops or don't have access to them, make sure you reach out to previous Marie Curie fellows to ask them for the content of these workshops or for the slides if they happen to have them. Spend a lot of time on your grant. Design a solid experimental protocol and know exactly what you're going to do in the 24 months during the fellowship. Take-home message number 4. Know what the reviewers are looking for in the grant. They do not have a lot of time to spend on each and every grant, so look for the guidelines to know exactly what to put in your Marie Curie Fellowship application. Number 5. If you're unsuccessful in your Marie Curie Fellowship, but you receive a high score, you will most likely receive a Seal of Excellence. Use the Seal of Excellence to apply for alternative funding in your host institutions. Training is really important in the Marie Curie Fellowship application, so make sure to know exactly the expertise you're bringing to your host and the expertise that the host is bringing to you. And lastly, take-home message number 7. Marie Curie Fellowships look for the whole package, so make sure your CV is good enough to apply, but they will be looking at your science, proposed project, and the training. Thank you so much for sticking around and watching our Marie Curie Fellowship videos. We hope these videos were helpful for your future application for the Marie Curie. If you have any follow-up questions for our guest speakers, for Francesco, Christina, or me, please don't hesitate to email us at scienceinthebreak@gmail.com. You can also reach us at our Twitter channel or YouTube channel. We hope to see you again in our next episode. See you. Bye.